fellow Falcoholics. What is up? Welcome to episode 187 of the Falcoholic Live, our final show before the kickoff of the 2022 NFL Draft, which is coming to you tomorrow, Thursday. It's going to allegedly get started at 8 o'clock, but as you all know, we're probably not going to get a pick until like 8:20 because they really love to drag out the pomp and circumstance. But before we get to our show tonight, on which we're going to conduct a final live Falcons mock draft to give you our final thoughts, final predictions as best we can. Obviously, we don't know how the board's going to fall before the 8th pick, but we're going to do our best to lay out a possible scenario for you. This is going to be our final predictive mock, so we're going to really try to get into the head of Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith. So we'll do that. We'll talk a little bit at the top about some recent draft rumors, and we'll talk a little bit about the press conference, just anything notable from there. And, of course, I'll give Aaron a chance to deliver his manifesto on why wide receiver is a terrible pick at 8, to which I wholeheartedly agree. But speaking of Aaron, he joins us tonight. It's Aaron Freeman from the Locked On Falcons podcast. He's at FalcFans on Twitter. Aaron, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Kevin. I look forward to another rant. It's like the 15th one about the Falcons taking a wide receiver I've done in the last 2 weeks. So let's go for number 2.
I didn't see, I was listening to it while I was running the pod. But I imagined you just sitting there with like a pipe and you're just like angrily shaking it as like smoke and sparks like fly, about like, why would they take a wide receiver? This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And you just take an angry puff and I just imagine that's what happened on the video show. But everyone, you need to watch the video show to actually find out if that happened. I admit that I did not, but appreciate you coming on. Yeah,
we're looking for some new sponsors for pipes, so I can do more angry rants in the future. So if anybody knows of any pipe makers out there, I'll be happy to send them my email.
Yeah, cannabis now legal in New York State, so legal cannabis companies, get at me for the sponsorship. Okay, hey, we don't judge here on this program, but also with us tonight on that note, before he shuts me down, the boss man at Dave Choate at the Falcoholic himself. Dave, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, and it's also legal in Maine, and right down the street from where I live, there's a place that has like a French fry stand right outside the dispensary, which seems like a brilliant decision to me. So we'll also take French fry sponsorships.
Yeah, French fries, absolutely. I could 100% get on board with that one as well. Yeah. Well, we have already long snapper questions, so I guess we'll have to get to that. And I know that's really the topic everyone cares about the most tonight. And then Soler asks, what am I drinking? It is a new beer. I got some for the draft. It's called Stormy Weather by Empire, which actually has a brewery in Syracuse. It's pretty good. I just took a sip. That was my first one. Dave, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking a Chaos Emeralds from Lone Pine in Portland, which is really good.
That sounds awesome. It sounds like a magic spell or something. So the name alone, 10 out of 10. Yeah.
They're kind of a Sonic tie-in tonight. Yeah. So
very nice. Yeah, guys. Well, let's talk quick just about a couple of the quick rumors. The first one that we're not going to spend a lot of time on, but I do want to touch on because like 5 people tweeted at me before the show. The Jordan Love rumor, it's tweeted out by an account that is not credible. So I wouldn't, don't freak out about this, but what I would urge people to do, the one part of it we're going to talk about is like, would the Falcons be interested in Jordan Love? And that's what you need to ask yourself. What is the point of this move? Like, if this is a true rumor, does it make sense for the Falcons? And I think when we talked about this a little bit when they were connected with Jordan Love, also very sketchily, months ago, and the answer was like, it doesn't. I mean, I think honestly, it probably made more sense then than it does now, because then it was like, well, they have Matt Ryan. Maybe they're looking to bring in a reclamation project and see what they have, and maybe he would get a chance here soon to get on the field if they move Matt Ryan. Now that Matt Ryan's gone, they brought in Marcus Mariota, and it's like, you've already got your reclamation project. Like, what exactly does Jordan Love bring to the table that Mariota doesn't? And on that, I'll sort of open the floor briefly to you guys. Dave, I mean, do you see, I just don't really see the point. What do you think about that sort of move?
I don't really see the point either. It'd be one thing, I guess, if, again, they hadn't signed Mariota, if Love had looked great in any kind of game action that he's gotten to this point, and he was like a guy that you would feel good about stepping in sometime this season and being better than what you've got. But like it just seems to me like just something made up to yank people's chains. And I think, if the Falcons get a quarterback this year, whatever, Fontenot says about adding to the quarterback room, like if it's not in the draft, it's not going to be anybody compelling. And I would sort of include Jordan Love in that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Aaron, anything you want to add on the Jordan Love situation? I mean, I think we all agree it's kind of ridiculous, but anything, yeah.
it's never made sense to me because like the thing with Jordan Love is like as a 2020 draft pick, his 5th-year option is due after this upcoming season.
Right.
So if you're going to trade for Jordan Love, you have to play him this year. Right. And so even in the months before we traded Matt Ryan, like with Matt Ryan on the team, you're not playing him. And now with Marcus Mariota on the team, you're not playing him. So it's never really made sense for a team like the Falcons to be in on Jordan Love. The only teams that should be in on Jordan Love, maybe Carolina, because you're looking at their roster and you're saying like, oh, he could play for them right now. But like, it just never made sense to me, the Falcons being in on Jordan Love, because like, if you want to kick those tires, you need to kick the tires. Like you can't just acquire him, trade a draft pick, and then put him on your bench and then hope through the power of osmosis that he becomes a good quarterback and that makes the trade worthwhile. He has to play, and he was never going to get that opportunity here in Atlanta. So unless, knock on wood, nothing happens to, Marcus Mariota in the next couple of months, it just doesn't make any sense for the Falcons to move on from or to go out there and acquire Jordan Love.
Yeah, and I think there was like a brief moment where I thought, oh, maybe this could make sense. And it was when we were talking about the other trade rumor that we're going to get to, which this is a pretty good seg, is, the rumor that Grady Jarrett possibly could be moved during the draft. And like that one's always one that's made a little bit more sense because the Falcons have sort of been a little bit weird in terms of the communication with Grady Jarrett. There's questions about like, why hasn't he signed an extension already? Because you'd think that would be a priority to free up cap space and get him under contract long-term because this is the final year of his contract. And so earlier when I was doing the number crunching, the Falcons and the Packers are pretty close in terms of like whoever's trading for Grady Jarrett, I believe needs to have like at least $15.8 million in terms of cap space, assuming the top 51 rule is, the same based on my math or whatever, but it's like $15.8 million approximately to trade for Grady Jarrett to absorb his cap hit. And if you're doing it during the draft, you don't really have time to do any like cap machinations or anything like that. The trade has to process like immediately so that you can get the picks. Cause I assume it's going to be for a pick on Thursday. So you can't really mess around with that. So if that were to happen, the Packers, for instance, don't quite have enough. They have like 14.5 or something like that. So someone tweeted at me, it's like, oh, could Jordan Love be included in the trade? Maybe the Packers save another $1.5 million or whatever they thought it might be because Jordan Love has like a $2 million cap hit or something like that. Would that potentially be an option? And it's like, okay, well, I could possibly see that. Maybe the Packers are trying to dump a little salary and sweeten the pot for the Falcons, all that sort of stuff. But the truth is that Jordan Love actually only saves them like $94,000 in cap space with the trade because like most of his contract is prorated bonus money at this point. So if they were to trade him during the draft, it would be like a very minimal savings that would not be enough to clear a Grady Jarrett trade. So without that option in there, I really don't see a feasible way that this trade goes down during the draft at all. So I think we can quickly move on from that one. But moving on to the Grady Jarrett thing, what do you think about that possibility, Aaron, given where the team and Grady appear to be at like right now?
Yeah, I joked with you on Twitter earlier today. Terry Fontenot said the infamous words, everybody knows how we feel about Grady. And he said that, him and Arthur Smith said that a ton in the months leading up to them trading Matt Ryan. Everybody knows how we feel about Matt Ryan. We love him, but we're not going to make any problem. Like it's sort of a talking point. It's the thing you say, I would shudder to think they probably said similar things about Julio Jones before trading him. So that doesn't give you confidence just because there seems to be a pattern there of they say a thing and then they trade the guy. But I still am skeptical of a trade. I recognize the possibility. To me, like I don't expect. And, Kevin, you and I often differ on this. I tend to be more pessimistic in what I think teams are going to be willing to offer up the Falcons for these players. Like I didn't think we would get a first for Calvin Ridley. I don't think we'll get a first for Grady Jarrett at this point in time, just because you're going to have to pay a huge salary to him if you're an acquiring team and you're like, second round pick, I could see that. So I look at it like, if I'm the Falcons and if I'm only going to get like a second round pick, obviously the conversation changes if you can get like a top 20 pick or something like that. But if I'm only going to get a second round pick for Grady Jarrett, like I don't see the point of trading him other than just to clear cap space. But like I would rather have Grady Jarrett this season than what I think a second round pick is going to probably be for me. And I'll take my chances with possibly losing Grady Jarrett next year. And again, I think thing that people need to realize is like the Falcons don't need to feel pressure to trade Grady Jarrett now, because they can still trade him next year, even though he's not a free agent, or he's a free agent. But we all can pretty much guess that, barring something crazy happen, Grady Jarrett's going to get the franchise tag next year. So like they can still trade him a year from now if they tag him. We saw the Packers do this exact same thing with Devontae Adams. They can tag and trade him. I'm probably blanking on an example that happened in the last couple of years as well.
It does happen. Yeah.
So like, I don't feel like the Falcons need to feel pressure. And so like, for me, if you're not going to get a first round pick for Grady Jarrett, you might as well just keep him. And if you just need to create cap space, you can restructure Deion Jones's contract for the 80th time, or you can restructure Grady Jarrett's and add some voidable years just to clear up enough space so you can get your rookie signed. So like, to me, I don't personally get the point of trading Grady Jarrett unless you're going to get like a buttload of picks for him. And if that's the case, then do it. But like, if you're not getting a first round pick, a top 20 pick, then to me, I just don't really see the point.
Yeah, I get that angle of it. And I don't really think that there's a need to trade him. Like, I think the like schematic stuff, people are like, oh, he doesn't fit in this defense. Like, if you can't make Grady Jarrett fit, like, you are a bad defensive coordinator. Like, this is a great player. Like, he can absolutely fit in a 3-4. He can absolutely rush the passer in a 3-4 and stop the run in a 3-4. There's no reason he can't do that. There's no reason you can't play a 3-tech when you're playing 3-down linemen. There's just no reason you can't do that. I think people get a little too rigid with how they're like, oh, well, a 3-4, it has, 2 4 eyes and a nose and all. It's no, like, you can do whatever the hell you want. You can have 2 3-techs for all I care. It's like, just play your players where they're good,
Yeah, I was just going to point in, like, people forget that Jarrell Casey was basically built the same way as Grady Jarrett succeeded in Dean Pease's scheme in Tennessee,
Yeah, that's all overblown. So, yeah. And like, I personally don't want to trade him. I don't think it's worth it. I think what we've sort of been led to believe in terms of like buzz, and obviously you take this with a grain of salt, is that the teams at the back of the first round sort of view that like 28 to 32 range. They sort of view those as seconds basically this year. Like the difference between that pick and what you can get a little bit later is just not that big. Like, there's some people were saying there's only 15 first round grades for a lot of teams this year and all that. So like, if they're viewing those 28 to 32 picks as more of like a early second as opposed to a real like first round premium pick, and obviously we don't know that, it's just speculation, but that's where I could see it happening. Because, if they're like, oh, well, are we going to, a team like the Bengals, for example, which is, I think, honestly the best maybe fit, they have the money, they have a need there. They didn't bring back Larry Ogunjobi. So they have a need on their defensive line. They're a win now team where you could see like, who are they going to go spend that $16 million on that would be better than Grady Jarrett? And are they going to get a player at 31 that's as good as Grady Jarrett? When you're in this win now window, a lot of people are like, oh, well, they need offensive line help. Do they? They signed 3 offensive linemen in free agency. They signed Karras, they signed Alex Kappa, and they signed Lael Collins. And maybe you think those guys aren't like the best offensive linemen in the world, but they spent a lot of money on that offensive line. They don't have to take one at 31. So I think there's a scenario where it sort of lines up, one of these late first round picks, they're willing to do it. And like the other half of the equation is like, what's the point of them trading him? And it would have to be like, they want someone, the Falcons covet someone that's available at 31. They don't think he's going to make it to 43, and they would like the salary cap relief, and they want to make the deal to secure this player. And a lot of people are going to go to a quarterback, but it might not be a quarterback. It could be a defensive lineman. It could be a falling tackle or a falling interior offensive lineman or whoever you want. But that's the two parts of it that I think have to align for this to work. Is that, like you said, if it's just a random mid-second round pick for Grady, don't trade him. Like, let him have a great season this year, hopefully, and then tag and trade him next year when you're probably going to get better compensation. And the other part of it is like, do the Falcons even want someone at 31 or 28 or wherever they're considering trading? Because if those two things don't align, you're not getting a trade at all. And if they do align, then it's like, okay, what's the compensation, all this, that, whatever. So there's a lot of barriers to the trade actually happening, but I agree with you in principle that, like, I don't think they need to force it. I think it's sort of like they need the offer to be good enough and they need to want someone at that spot that's going to move the needle for them, either this year or long term. Dave, I did want to get your take on that too, on the possibility of Grady getting traded during the draft.
I don't want it. So, a couple reasons. Number one, I think, Grady Jarrett is still, assuming he wants to be here, team's best defender, second best defender, depending on whether you think Terrell is, this is sort of the level he's going to operate at from now on, which I certainly hope so. But he's also a guy that I think is tremendous in the community, for the team, one of the few vocal leaders, and definitely a fan favorite, one of my favorites. And so I really don't want to see him moved, just because I think he's great for the city, he's great for the team, and he's somebody that you would love to see here, in a couple of years from now, hopefully when the Falcons have their next great defense, which you can stop laughing now, but I do think that if you get that first round pick, which again, as Aaron said, is probably unlikely, it might be hard for the team to pass up. I know they have to figure out a way to, clear a little bit more cap space to sign who they want and get the draft class in-house. But you're hoping, and I'm hoping personally, that they can get an extension done with Grady instead, to solve that particular problem. So it's something I'm kind of steeling myself for. I know we can't be overly sentimental, I guess, in this moment, because the Falcons are trading away or letting go kind of everybody who's been here a long time, as they retool this thing on the fly. But I personally hope that, it's an extension and not a trade that we're talking about a week from now.
I agree. And not just because I bought his jersey like a year ago. Like, for God's sake, please don't let me flush that money in. And he'll still always be a great Falcons player, so I can still wear it. But I mean, I would like to at least wear it while he's on the team for like a couple of years. That would be great if they could do that for me. Yeah, the other part that I was going to get to with that, I love Grady. I really don't want to see him go. That's sort of where I end on it. I would rather not trade him. But I think it's possible. And the one thing I did want to mention real quick, because people are talking about it in the chat, is that, we don't trust this regime to make good trades because they traded Ryan for a third. And I agree. Ryan for a third was a terrible trade. That was really bad compensation. Like, you're not wrong. But they did last year in a similar situation with a player who needed to be traded. They got what looks like a complete theft in hindsight now, a second round pick for Julio Jones and a fourth round pick next year, which we haven't even gotten yet. And I think you look at that trade and you're like, that was tremendous value in hindsight. I think we all thought it was a little low at the time, but now it looks like great value. So don't let recency bias taint your impression of this team. Like, they made one bad trade and they made one good trade. So they're average. They're batting 500, which is still pretty good, with trades. So don't be overly concerned about them being like terrible traders based off of one bad trade and one good trade. I don't think we have enough information to know at this point if they're getting great value, if they're one of these regimes that's going to maximize the value of these players, or if they're going to get shortchanged. And hopefully it's better value, but don't put too much stock in the Ryan trade. I mean, I think we all know that was kind of a weird situation. I don't think it's the same situation with Grady for all the reasons Aaron mentioned, that I don't think the Falcons feel like a ton of pressure to trade him. I think they would if the offer was correct and, like we said, that the player they wanted was there at the pick that someone's trying to trade for him. But there's no need to force it. And I don't think that they will. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, guys. All right. Well, let's go ahead. Did you guys have anything else you want to talk about before we enter the mock draft? I know we signed a long snapper, Dave. I know that's your favorite part of the entire offseason, is now going to be the long snapper competition. But any takes on, I don't even remember the guy's name, if I'm being totally honest, but I know he was a long snapper.
No, just it's a the veteran, the wily veteran versus the young upstart at long snapper, and the first long snapper battle since I can't even remember how much of a battle it was between Josh Harris and Joe Zelenka. So, or if Zelenka had retired at that point. Like, Aaron, help me out here. You're the only other person I know who might remember.
I think Josh Harris came in scot-free, I want to say. But
okay, yeah.
That's 9 years ago. I don't remember.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
this is going to be really spicy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big battle, and it's going to define the summer in Atlanta. So we can't talk enough about it. So we'll have a separate episode.
Yeah. We'll have to have an entire episode in the dead season dedicated to the long snapper battle. So look forward to that, guys, on the long snapper pod. That one's coming. All right, before we get to our draft, we have a quick mock from Corey Carter with the $5. Corey, thank you so much. His final prediction, he's got Kyle Hamilton at 8, defensive tackle Perry on Winfrey at 43, running back Kenneth Walker 58, pass rusher Nick Bonito at 74, linebacker Leo Chenal at 82, tight end Cade Otton at 114. You must be like, are you trying to make me happy, Corey? You're taking all my guys. In terms of Perry on Winfrey, Kyle Hamilton, and Cade Otton. So you must have been reading my mocks. But 151, Myron Cunningham. 190, Georgia guard Justin Schaefer. Like how he stuffed that dog in there at the end. And wide receiver Bo Melton at 213, which I think is pretty good value. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good draft, Corey. I don't have a lot of complaints about that. I think you hit most of the things. I think that the big thing is that I'd probably lean wide receiver over running back at 58. It depends on who was there. I don't know who was there in your simulation, but that would be the one thing maybe. But otherwise, I love Cade Otton. He's my tight end too. I think he's super underrated. I think Bo Melton is a great pick at 213 if he's still there. I don't really have a lot of problems with it. I love Perry on Winfrey. I love Kyle Hamilton. Love Nick Bonito. Love Neil Chenal. I like most of those guys. So yeah, good stuff. All right, let's transition, and we're gonna open it up because we're gonna do this simulation, and we will have veto power. So if we think that the simulation that gets put up is like completely ridiculous, because this is our final predictive mock. So if we feel like that the top 7 picks are ridiculous and they're not gonna happen, then we can veto. But let's see what it shakes out to, and then I want to open up the floor because we're probably gonna be staring at a lot of receivers at 8, as that tends to happen, and I wanted to give Aaron a chance to break down why we're probably not going to take a wide receiver at 8, or we're definitely not going to, but why the Falcons probably won't. So let me run these first 7 picks here, and we'll see what it looks like. All right, well, four edge players went in the top 5, which seems to be the way things are trending. Okay, we did get a couple offers for trade, which we could consider too. I will table those real quick. All right. So, yeah, this is basically what I got earlier today, actually. Almost exactly what I got earlier today, and I think it's pretty accurate. So I'll read it off for you guys for our draft committee. So, this is actually a pretty trendy mock. This is, I think, what a lot of people are sort of forecasting right now. We've got Trayvon Walker going 1 to the Jaguars. That seems to be where the wind is blowing. And if that happens, then Aiden Hutchinson goes to the Lions at 2. Again, I think that's pretty likely to happen. Ahmad Gardner, Sauce going at 3 to the Texans. This is also very trendy. And I've heard from some people that I trust that one is, a lot of people are writing that down in pen. Which is a little shocking to me, but that seems to be the way that the winds are blowing there as well. Kayvon Thibodeau at 4 to the Jets. Again, I think Kayvon Thibodeau is like a top 3 player in this class. Top 2 maybe. Top 3 probably. So I totally get that for Oregon. And then Jermaine Johnson going at 5 to the Giants. Which again, I don't know if he'll go at 5 or 7, but he's being linked to the Giants a lot, so that could be a real legit thing as well. And then Evan Neal at 6 to the Panthers, Ikem Ekwonu at 7 to the Giants. Again, I think that's also the way those tackles would shake out. If Neal makes it to 6, then I think that it's going to be Neal there, if it's not Kenny Pickett. And if Neal is gone, I actually think it'll be Charles Cross, which could result in Ekwonu falling to 8. But in this situation, the edges went first, which I guess shows maybe that the Giants don't care as much about getting their offensive tackle. They care more about having Jermaine Johnson as like the last top edge guy, which makes sense to me because if someone's going to trade up to 6, you would think that it could be for Jermaine Johnson. So that leaves the Falcons on the board now. Obviously, all the top edges are gone, which takes away like usually the player we pick here, right? We usually pick, I feel like, Jermaine Johnson if we stay at 8. The trade that we got, we did get an offer from the Eagles. They offered us 15 and 51 for 8. I feel like probably get another pick from them too. But I don't know. I wonder, we could probably get, I would think we could get their later third rounder too, but I don't know. I feel like just 51 is kind of shortchanging the Falcons there a little bit. But if you want to consider a trade, we can, or we can take the best player available, which to me right now would probably be Kyle Hamilton. Other guys that are available, Jordan Davis, Derek Stingley, let's see, Charles Cross on the offensive line, and then a bunch of wide receivers, just like we said. Malik Willis too. Malik Willis is definitely worth mentioning in that conversation. And then all the wide receivers. So, Aaron, tell the people why we're not going to consider a wide receiver here at 8.
Well, everybody in, as they call it, big draft media, the 3 and 4 letter networks, believe the Falcons are taking a wide receiver. And this is shocking to me because, we watch this team try to be, essentially try to condense, 4 hours of rant into 5 minutes. But, try to be this finesse team for the last decade, right? That was the Thomas Dimitroff dream of having, 2, great wide receivers that culminated in them trading it all for Julio Jones and essentially them chasing that for the better part of a decade of having these sort of 2 premier weapons. And with Matt Ryan as the quarterback, it made total sense. And certainly a decade ago when they made that trade for Julio, they had a running game with Michael Turner. They had a decent offensive line. They had a decent defense and all those various things. So you could justify this notion of getting 2 weapons as like the finishing piece to the puzzle. And you look throughout NFL history, you see this time and time again where that wide receiver can be the element that really takes a team over the top. Terrell Owens in Philadelphia, Randy Moss with the Patriots, Jamar Chase last year with the Bengals, Stephon Diggs with the Bills, Julio here in Atlanta, et cetera, et cetera. But the Falcons aren't there, right? And like, I've gotten so much feedback from Falcon fans when I'm like, it doesn't make any sense for the Falcons to invest in another pass catcher. And they're like, well, look at the Chiefs. And I'm like, but they're the Chiefs. They're like, they're a
right.
team. And like, the Falcons are like where the Chiefs were like 8 years ago. Like they're 8 years behind where the Chiefs are. So using how the Chiefs have built their roster the last 3 or 4 years is not really applicable to what the Falcons are because we're like the 2012, the Tyler Thigpen led Chiefs or whenever that was. That's really where we're at in our rebuilding process. And so to me, like we watched this team for a decade be this finesse team and get pushed around in terms of their physicality. We see these new coaches and Arthur Smith and Dean Pease come in, and we see the big problem with those teams a year ago where they did not win enough on the line of scrimmage. That was the downfall of this team. And so for this team to look at their roster and say, you know what, the one player that we really need to replace, it's Calvin Ridley. And it's like, no, you need to replace Matt Ryan. You need to get better on the offensive line. You need to find pass rushers. You need to find playmakers on defense. Like, look, losing Calvin Ridley was a significant blow. And certainly in a world where Matt Ryan was still the quarterback or Deshaun Watson was the quarterback, I wouldn't be pushing that hard against the idea of taking a wide receiver because that's a quote unquote win now move of like, let's get, some weapons here to maximize these last few years of Matt Ryan or to restart the clock with Deshaun Watson. But with clear, and I know this is weird in some certain Falcon circles are like, Marcus Mariota is actually going to be a long term. Like, no, he's not. He's 1 year rental. But like, yeah, with the Falcons not having a franchise quarterback, to me, it doesn't make sense to start like, oh, let's get pass catchers for a quarterback that's not here, for an offensive line that doesn't go. So long story short, like, it just doesn't make any sense for the Falcons to continue to go down this finesse track when they're basically at the beginning of a rebuild. Get your cornerstone pieces, particularly in the trenches, in the front seven. If you want to if you think Kyle Hamilton's a defensive difference maker, Kevin and I have talked about this on the pods in previous episodes, like, take him. That makes perfect sense to me. But taking a wide receiver that's not going to give any value to your roster until 3 years from now, when that quarterback that you eventually get is ready to start throwing the ball instead of just handing the ball off, like, to me, just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. You're exactly right. And it was funny because I was listening to Draft Dudes, which is another good draft podcast, today. And I think it was their episode from like a week or two, or it was a couple days ago maybe. But they were like, one of them, I can't remember if it was Kyle Krabs or Joe Marino, but one of them was like, oh, well, the Falcons need to replace Calvin Ridley. And the other one was like, no, they don't. Like, Calvin Ridley didn't even play in that offense. Like, why would you think Arthur Smith wants another Calvin Ridley? Like, he wants, if anything, he wants another AJ Brown or another, big, like Calvin Ridley's not necessarily the type of receiver that he's ever coveted. So like, I would not base my decisions on a wide receiver that they want on Calvin Ridley being the prototype. And like that, notwithstanding the fact that they probably shouldn't take a wide receiver at 8 at all. I mean, that's why I've said, I think it's probably Drake London. And then I think you on your show mentioned that the only one you would even consider would be Jamison Williams, just because he's the one that has the real chance to be elite. And like, if he had gotten a chance to test at the combine and he wasn't going to miss all this time, if he came out and ran a 4.25 and had these crazy jumps and all this stuff, that put, those combine numbers alongside his tape, in which you saw him just basically running away from SEC defenses like it was nothing, maybe you could make the argument that like, this is the special receiver in this class. We're going to take a shot on him. We don't care that he needs to sit a year because this is a long-term plan. But your point about wide receiver not moving the needle at all for this team is 100% true, because this is not a passing focused offense anymore. This is going to be a balanced offense. And I think, honestly, this is what they've wanted ever since Arthur Smith got hired. They were working with Dan Quinn's pieces last year. They were working with, Steve Sarkisian, Dirk Cutter offensive pieces last year. They had to run a form of that just because they couldn't necessarily get out of all these deals. And you have Matt Ryan. So when you have a quarterback like Matt Ryan, you're going to throw the ball because you're going to be able to throw the ball effectively. And like, I think Marcus Mariota will be a functional quarterback. I think if you have a rosy opinion on Marcus Mariota, you're hoping that he's like an average starter. And I think that's possible. He could be an average starter. But he's not going to be like a top 10 quarterback. Like, the ship has probably sailed on that. Even the biggest Marcus Mariota homers are probably not going to be like, oh, well, we expect him to be this elite NFL quarterback. And maybe he turns into the next Ryan Tannehill, even though Ryan Tannehill was the one who took his job. But again, like, Ryan Tannehill, even at his best, is sort of like a fringe top 10 quarterback. So like, the rosiest possible prediction for Mariota is that he turns into this like fringe top 10 guy and all this. But even then, like, it's not like the Titans are a high volume passing attack. Even at the best, they were not a high volume passing attack, and the Falcons aren't going to be that either. So how big of a priority is your number 2 target? Because who seems to get forgotten in all these conversations is freaking Kyle Pitts, who they took at 4 overall last year. Like, yes, he has a tight end in front of his name. He is the number 1 target in this passing offense. He's going to be the number 1 target. If they took Drake London and Jamison Williams and 5 other receivers, Kyle Pitts is still the number 1 target. So they have a number 1 guy. They need other options, certainly, but how big of a difference is another receiver going to make? Like a secondary target. Like, what's the value of that versus, where they have absolutely massive needs, like at left guard? And we're not going to take a left guard at 8 either. But again, like, that's a bigger need. That's going to have a much bigger impact on your offense than another receiving option. And then the defensive side, like that's what you talked about on your pod. It was, they need to be able to at least stop the run, because that's probably their path to winning some games against the bad teams on their schedule this year. Those teams are going to try to run the ball. The Falcons can stop the run well, then they have a chance to beat those teams in these low-scoring games. They couldn't stop the run last year, and they couldn't rush the passer. the way the board fell here, and this is a very legitimate way it could fall, the edge rushers are gone. There's no edge here that we're taking. Like, we're not considering drafting Karlaftis here. I'm not anyway. So we could go in a Jordan Davis direction. That is the defensive lineman I would consider here. But again, that's just one option. And if you're taking Jordan Davis here, you're hoping that he is the like cornerstone of your defensive line that's able to help you shut down the run game and become an elite run defense. And you're hoping that he can be more like his 340 self, be this alien athlete and have some pass rushing upside, which I think is legit. Like I'm fine with that. If you want to go all in on Jordan Davis's upside, fine. So he's one guy I think we should consider. The other one, obviously, Kyle Hamilton. We've talked about him a bunch. If you have a problem with Kyle Hamilton, a lot of people seem to be like, oh, he's a hit or miss player. Like, I don't know what you're watching. Like, he's not a miss player. Like, this is a guy that's going to be good as long as you don't make him play single high all the time. And the Falcons aren't going to do that. They don't play single high very much to begin with. Now, if you want to argue that other players might have more value because he's a safety, that's fine. But I think at this point, 4 edges have gone and 2 offensive tackles have gone. So the top trench players are all gone. We're looking at secondary options here, and I think it's hard to pass on Kyle Hamilton, who I think in a vacuum is one of the top 3 most talented players in this class. He's a blue chip elite talent. So I think getting that type of player at 8, even if it's at a non-premium position, is absolutely worth it. And I think the difference between someone like Hamilton and someone like a wide receiver like Drake London is that I think Hamilton offers you more impact in more areas of the game. Like, I don't really think adding a wide receiver to the Falcons offense in its current iteration is going to make the offense that much better. I think Kyle Hamilton could have a noticeable impact on the defense because he's an impact run defender. He can blitz, and he's a very instinctive coverage player. And if he gets you, 5 turnovers or whatever, which I think is that's not crazy to say that Kyle Hamilton could get you 5 picks or 3 picks and a couple forced fumbles or whatever. Then I think that's a guy who's going to be a difference maker for you. Just because he's not in the trenches, I think he's got a more clear path to helping you reshape your team and helping you win games than a wide receiver. So we talked about Jordan Davis and Kyle Hamilton. The other one I would probably consider is Malik Willis, just because it's a quarterback. And if the Falcons do love a quarterback, this is the one you would take at 8. Ritter, I would not take at 8. I know some people think I'm like the biggest Ritter homer. And yes, I am a Ritter homer, but I'm not that much of a homer that I would take him at 8. I would not do that. I've never done that. I've never pounded the table for that. I'm not going to do that. But Willis, I think, is in that conversation. I know some people are Derek Stingley fans. I can't get there in the top 10. I just don't view him on that level. I think he's a risky player. The ceiling is undeniable, but I'm too scared. And then Charles Cross is the offensive lineman I think most people would consider. The only thing that gives me pause with Cross is I think you would play him at left tackle. And I don't think are we really taking a left tackle to move Jake Matthews, or are we asking Cross to change to right? I just don't think that's a great setup. I just don't love that fit. I think Cross is well worth the 8th overall pick. I just don't know that that's the direction they should go. But I know, Aaron, you and I have gone back and forth a little bit. I do want to get Dave's opinion on sort of where we are and what you think the Falcons might sort of go after in this situation, Dave.
Yeah, I think Willis would be really tempting for them, if I'm being totally honest. And I may be misreading quarterback in a major way, the way I did a year ago when I thought.
Oh, and me, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, right? We thought that Fields would be in play at 4 in a way that he wasn't. But to me, the need is now more dire because you don't have Matt Ryan anymore. You need that franchise quarterback, in my opinion, and you can't guarantee that you're going to be in a good position to get him a year from now. Obviously, if you're going to move, day 2 assets in this draft to set yourself up to trade up next year, have that fail safe because you like that class more, that's fine. That I can see that approach. I do think if Willis is sitting there at number 8, there's a pretty decent chance he's one of the top guys on their board. And so I would strongly consider him here. But the guy that I would ultimately go would probably be Hamilton. It's a tough call from me between like what I think the Falcons would do versus who I think the best player is, because I think it is Hamilton at 8, especially without my guy Thibodeau on the board, who I was hoping would be here at 8 that I could pick, and kind of talk you guys into if you needed any talking into it. But to me, it's really between Hamilton and Willis here. And, I would probably lean toward Hamilton, but I could see the team being pretty excited to get Willis here. I think it's a bet on the talent, and you figure the rest of it out later.
Yeah. And I think that's sort of the crux of the conversation is like, this is our predictive mock, not necessarily exactly what we would do. So, what do we think the team would do? And like, I do really like Malik Willis. Like if they decided that Malik Willis was the guy, they wanted to take a chance on him, I would be down. If only because it would just be fun. Like, it would be fun to have Malik Willis on this roster. Like, it would be fun. It would be exciting. Whatever you think about Willis and his year 1 projection, which I don't know if they're going to ask him to play much year 1. They'll probably come up with packages for him and stuff like that. It'll be interesting. But, like, he gives you a ceiling quarterback, a guy that could potentially become an elite quarterback in this league. And that's, like, if you don't have that, you're going to be a step below the teams that do, always. So, like, even a shot at that sort of player, teams go crazy for that. And if the board falls this way, the Lions don't take him, the Panthers don't take him, nobody trades up, I think it's very much a possibility that the Falcons could. And part of the reason that I think it's maybe more likely than people think is there hasn't been a lot of buzz about it. I think the players that the Falcons actually want to take, they're not going to tell anyone about. Like, they're talking up Matt Corral and they're talking up Desmond Ridder and all this stuff. The guy they probably want, I'm sure they like those guys, and the same with Drake London. Like, I'm sure the Falcons actually like Drake London. I'm sure they actually like Jermaine Johnson. Like, they like all these guys, but they're not going to leak the guys they're planning to take, at least not at 8. They're going to leak the guys that they like. They're not lying, but is that really who they're targeting? And I would be skeptical of that. And I think Malik Willis is a legitimate option. It probably wouldn't be my pick, I guess, at this point. I'd probably lean Kyle Hamilton. I think Jordan Davis has a case as well, but I think it's a worthy pick and should be on our board here. But yeah, Aaron, what do you think about those guys, those 3? And if you have anyone else you want to add to the conversation, that's fine too.
No, like, it's going to drop a little bit later on YouTube tonight, but the episode of Locked On Falcons, like I list 5 players that I think are likely to be the pick, right? 90% chance I say on that episode that it's going to be one of these 5 guys. And 3 of them are Malik Willis, Kyle Hamilton, Jordan Davis. The other 2 are Jermaine Johnson and Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah.
So I think in this scenario, it comes down to one of those 3 players. And if you're asking me, of those 3 left on the board, who I think is most likely to get picked, I kind of think it's probably going to be Malik Willis. But okay. I do want to say that this is the scenario. George Costanza, I know, is out there. This is the exact scenario where I think we can really seriously talk about Jordan Davis being the pick, where all the edge rushers are off the board, and now you want a difference maker in the trenches, a guy that's going to set the tone and be all the things that everybody believes Jordan Davis is going to be. This is the time where if we're going to throw a curveball here and take Jordan Davis at 8, this is the scenario where I think it sets up for that.
Yeah,
is what I'll say.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like George did just tip actually about it. George with the $5. He says this regime is better than the old one. They passed on signal callers last year to take a unicorn in Pitts, and I think Davis is that man this year. Who gives a crap about the position? Davis is the best player in the draft. Stop the run, open up the pass rush. Yeah. So and George, to be fair to George, we did take Jordan Davis, I believe, in our first live mock. I don't know if we took him at 8, but I definitely have mocked Jordan Davis to the Falcons out of respect for George. And I think I agree with Aaron that this is a scenario where you would strongly consider him as one of the big potential difference makers. And you're betting on upside. But again, and this is sort of a tie-in to the press conference, right? They said they like guys with high floors that they can coach up to their ceiling. That doesn't mean they're just interested in high floor players that don't have a ceiling. That to me is signaling, I think we took it to mean Jermaine Johnson as a guy who is a very high floor player, but also has more of a ceiling, has ceiling as a pass rusher too that he hasn't unlocked. And Jordan Davis is exactly like that too. High floor player in that he's an elite run stopper right now. Like he is going to come into the NFL and possibly be the best run stopping nose tackle in the NFL. He could potentially challenge for that sort of role. Hold on one second. I got to ban someone in the chat.
I don't know. Are we really passing up on this hot girls and boys video chat?
I know. It's very tempting.
Yeah.
I got him. Well, that's the problem when you get big as a channel, right? That you have more spammers coming in. Honestly, we don't have that many. I'm impressed. That's not an invitation, spammers, but all right. So
Kevin, before you
go ahead.
move on, go ahead and send that link that the hot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll copy. Yeah, I hid it on the channel, but I have the link.
Okay,
it's still
appreciate
saved
it.
in my archives. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Interesting interlude there. Hopefully we don't have that intrusion at the actual draft. The hot boys and girls webcams popping up all over the NFL Network stream or something like that. But yeah, so we talked about Jordan Davis. We talked about Malik Willis. We talked about Kyle Hamilton. I really don't think... I think if they take one of those three players, I could see any of them. It's really... I think it comes down to, like, what do we think they're going to do? Because this is our predictive mock. So I guess I'll go around. I know, Dave, you're leaning Willis here. You think that's what the team would do in this situation?
Yeah, I think ultimately that for a number of reasons, Willis's upside, just who he seems to be as a human being and a leader, and this team's glaring long-term need at quarterback, I think he would be the pick.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And Aaron, are you also leaning that you think this would probably be a scenario where the Falcons would lean Willis here?
Yeah, if I'm being honest, yeah. I'm trying to sit here and come up with a compelling reason not to say Willis. Right. You talk about the floor and you're like, well, he's not really a high floor player. So maybe that's enough to be like, let's go with Davis. Let's go with Hamilton. But if I'm being honest, like I do feel like if it's down to these three, I think Willis is going to be the preferred option for the Falcons. Although, like, again, I don't love that pick. I want to sit here and be like, let's steer the conversation. Like, so I want to sit here and make up something and say, oh, no, he definitely won't be the pick. But if I'm being completely honest, I do think that's the direction they'll go.
Yeah. I think it's and the funny thing is we haven't ever drafted Malik Willis on one of these drafts. I don't think I've actually had him in any mock draft. So it would be fitting that the last mock draft would finally get Malik Willis, because I talk about Malik Willis all the time. I never actually have the stones to draft him, but I know it's going to make a lot of people mad. But look, we've done 3 of these things. I think we took Jermaine Johnson. I think we took Jordan Davis. Like, we took all the usual suspects. We're not taking a wide receiver. You guys have seen me mock Kyle Hamilton. You're going to see me mock Kyle Hamilton tomorrow, my final offline mock. Like, I think these are all options. This is just one potential scenario. I know people are going to be mad about Malik Willis here, but I think we're trying to get in the shoes of the Falcons, and I think that they would pounce on this opportunity as well. I think it's possible. I think they would also possibly be playing the phones here. If the Steelers come with some sort of Godfather offer for Willis, there's rumors they really like him. I think it's possible they trade the pick, but I think you could also argue, and a friend of mine, Tyler Fornes, who's going to be on the draft party, I think late on day one, especially if the Falcons get Malik Willis, he'll be on immediately, I'm sure. But he makes the argument that Willis actually has a high floor as a passer because of his natural talent and because of his rushing ability, that it gives you a way to operate the offense early on that doesn't necessarily require him to have this huge passing game load. If he can take the pressure off by running the football, running more RPO concepts, that sort of stuff, you could craft an offense around him that doesn't ask him to do as much as a passer early on, and that might actually give him a high floor. So I just wanted to put that out there too. I think that you could make an argument that, like, the floor is high in some ways. Obviously the floor as a passer is not as high as someone like Ritter, but the floor as an overall quarterback prospect might actually be higher than expected, but it just depends on what they value. And we also know the Falcons love, like, people, like, and I honestly, from talking to Malik Willis at the Senior Bowl and, like, seeing him, like, I think he's the type of person that like you just love the person. Like he's electric. He's got infectious energy. He interviews super well. You could tell he loves the game. You can tell he's a guy that's going to work hard. And they really value that. The Falcons do. That is something they really take into account. And I think he will check those boxes as well. And yes, you can make the argument about the small school and playing weak defenses and all this stuff. That's all valid. But you're going after ceiling, and the only one worth the ceiling here at 8 is Willis. But what's the payoff? Like if you hit on Willis, that's a slam dunk pick. That's like a Matt Ryan level pick that sets up your franchise for your most, Matt Ryan's selection set up the Falcons for their most successful run of football in franchise history. And he was considered a reach at 2 by, our very own draft expert, Dave Cho. So, I'm just saying fans and us amateur draft analysts don't necessarily always know the best players.
There's still time, by the way, for Glenn Dorsey to overtake Matt Ryan.
It's possible.
Say that.
Yeah, it would be a miracle, but miracles happen sometimes.
Beep, beep, beep. That's Kevin backing up the bus over Dave. With that take, right?
I got to throw in the anytime we talk about quarterbacks, I have to drop in the Glenn Dorsey. But yeah. But again, like, we've done a lot of scenarios on here. The one we haven't done yet is Malik Willis. And honestly, it's because he is always gone before this pick in our live mocks. So we probably would have had more of a conversation if he had made it here. But I think for this situation, let's go with Malik Willis. Let's see how that affects the draft going forward, because this is a situation we haven't had a chance to look at yet. And again, if you guys wanted the Falcons to take Kyle Hamilton here or Jordan Davis here, we're both fully on board with those picks. Like, we're not arguing against those picks at all. If that's the way it went, I wouldn't be upset. We're trying to pick what we think the Falcons will do, and we think the Falcons are going to lean Willis here slightly. So that's what we're going with. Let's see how the rest of this shakes out. So finally, with the final mock draft, one of the final mock drafts I'm doing of the season, we finally get Malik Willis to the Falcons. This was my plan all along. So it's a sleeper mock draft. I've been waiting, ever since the Senior Bowl to drop my Malik Willis love onto the unsuspecting Falcons public. So, all right, let's see how this shakes out. Yeah, I mean, for the record, like, all the other quarterbacks pretty much go before the Falcons get a chance in the second round. At this point, the only quarterback available at 43 is Carson Strong. So I know, Aaron, you're a big Carson Strong fan, so it's not like Carson Strong's a bad quarterback. But if they wanted Sam Howell or they wanted Desmond Ridder or anybody like that, they would have to probably trade up, like we were talking about, either with Grady Jarrett or trading up from 43 or something like that. But in this scenario, we're at 43. We do have an offer from the Patriots. They would like to move up. They're offering us a 4th rounder in exchange for dropping down to 54. I think that's not a bad offer, to be honest. To pick up, I think there's good players in that 4th round range. Let's see what we have on the board here, because that might answer the question for us. And yeah, I mean, I think this would be hard to trade down from, because we've got Arnold Ebiketie, who's one of my favorite edge rushers in this class. We've got Christian Watson, who's one of my favorite receivers in this class. We've got George Pickens, who I know a lot of people are a fan of. We've got Tyler Smith, very intriguing interior offensive lineman. Travis Jones, defensive tackle from UConn as well. Tariq Woolen, super high upside corner. I mean, there's a lot of good players here. So I can see why the Patriots are coming up. So, I mean, to me, it's like, I don't know that I want to risk losing out on Ebiketie and Watson basically for a 4th round pick. I guess that's where, and as nice as it would be to have an extra 4th, like, we already have 4 day 2 picks. And then, I don't know that it's necessary to trade down here. Yeah. So I guess to me, my top choices would probably, Breece Hall's here too. I don't think the Falcons are going to value running back quite that high, but to me, it would be Watson, Ebiketie, and that's a tough call. Travis Jones, Tyler Smith, those are guys I would consider too. Probably Ebiketie and Watson are the top 2 for me. Aaron, what are you thinking at this spot?
I'll be honest with you. It's been a while since I watched Ebiketie. And I don't actually I don't recall if I had a strong opinion on it. I was like, yeah, I think it's good. So I'm not gonna advocate for or against him. I'm just going to assume that everybody else that agrees that he's like a late first, early second round talent in that 20 to 40 range is absolutely correct, and I agree 100% with the consensus opinion on that. So, because of that, I'm leaning Ebiketie because I just really want to get some pass rush help here.
Yeah.
We've talked before. Like I still think this mock simulator puts Travis Jones much lower than.
Yeah, I agree.
He's going to get drafted. I think he's going to go like 15 spots, at least 15 spots ahead of where this is. I am a Christian Watson fan. I do become much more open to the possibility of taking a wide receiver earlier once you have the quarterback secure, because you're like, okay, this is going to be our quarterback. This is the guy we're going to build around. Malik Willis in this scenario, you question his ability to throw over the middle, so you want to get a big outside receiver, right? So now all of a sudden, the Drake London conversation, the Christian Watson conversation, the George Pickens conversation, I think really starts. You can have that conversation in earnest moving forward. But I want the pass rusher, so I'm leaning Ebiketie, but I can be easily swayed.
Yeah, Ebiketie doesn't usually get here. So that is one that I haven't had a chance to draft at 43 very often. I think he's a tremendous value here at 43. I think Christian Watson is the same thing, tremendous value. It really just depends. And I agree, like in a vacuum, I think I'd probably take Ebiketie just because I'm surprised he's here. I'm also a little bit, I'm not as surprised Watson's here. I think he got a little overhyped after the combine, mostly because, look, Christian Watson's like an alien as a wide receiver prospect. Like, he has absurd athletic testing, but he does he runs deep routes. Like, that's what he does. And he's really good at that. And I think there's plenty of ability for him to become a better intermediate runner. He's got all the talent in the world to do that stuff. He just hasn't done it a lot. So Watson's going to be a limited player in his rookie year. It doesn't really matter to me because the Falcons aren't on this win now timeline. And I think it could dovetail nicely with Malik Willis's, developmental timeline as well. Willis might not play much this year and Watson's going to have a limited role this year. That's fine. Maybe by next year, Watson's ready to go as your wide receiver 1. And then Malik Willis is ready to go as your quarterback. And they have had, an entire season together to get to know each other. I think that makes a ton of sense. Ebiketie's also really good. So I'm also split. Dave, what are you thinking? Is it one of those two players that you're leaning, or is someone else you have in mind?
I don't actually know a ton about Ebiketie, but me and pass rushers on principle. So I am definitely including him in the conversation. And from a realistic mock draft perspective, if he's a guy that the Falcons like, I don't think they're remotely satisfied with what they have to go after the quarterback, and they shouldn't be after last year. I might put Pickens ahead of Watson here. I think that from my perspective, he's a guy that I know there are some character concerns or perceived character concerns with Pickens, but I think that he might be a really good fit for this offense and what they want their guys to do. So I could see him being, I could see Watson or Pickens, but I would probably lean, if I was in the Falcons' shoes and thinking the way that I think they think, I would probably go Pickens over Watson. And so those would be kind of my two guys there. And again, I don't, like you guys, I don't expect Jones to be here, so I'm sort of ignoring him.
Yeah. I think we're all sort of leaning Ebiketie here, and I think part of this final simulation too is I think we should let some of the weirdness stay in. I think we all believe Ebiketie is going to go early because that's what people have been talking about, but people are going to fall. It happens every year. There's going to be people that fall, and maybe this year it's Ebiketie. Let's have the Falcons pounce on the guy that falls for a change instead of just sort of letting them slip by like a ship in the night, And look, they got a quarterback. That's great. They still desperately need trench help. We can't just stop caring about the defensive line now that we have Malik Willis. This is still a team that's going to want to win with a balanced offense and defense, even with Malik Willis in here. So I say let's go with Ebiketie. You guys good with that?
Yeah, I think, yeah. this is the scenario where you want to see happen. Like if the Falcons don't go with a trench player or a pass rusher in round 1, you're hoping that the way the board falls is that someone that is being considered a late first round, or is someone like Ebiketie who's not expected to be at 43, falls to them at 43, and they can sort of see we didn't go with the need or whatever people perceive, the quarterback or whatever the case may be, but we did get that need pick in round 2 because we manipulated the board or something like that. So I would definitely sprint to the podium for Ebiketie here.
Yeah. Let's do that. Falcons pick again shortly at 58. And we will see what's on the board for us there. All right. All the trade offers now are just comically low. All right. So, top of the board now at 58, Christian Harris from Alabama. Linebacker, Kenneth Walker III from Michigan State. George Pickens is still here. DeMarvin Leal on the defensive line. Trey McBride at tight end. Dylan Parham on the offensive line. Leo Chenal also at linebacker. Yeah, there's definitely some intriguing guys here. Probably the pick would be Pickens, I assume, if he makes it this far. And Pickens' stock seems to be all over the place. Like it just like I just don't buy into any anonymous scouts questioning character at this point of the process. Like it comes out like 2 weeks before the draft. Like I'm sorry, I can't vet that. I can't put any stock in that. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. That's up to the Falcons. And if the Falcons, we have to assume that they have these players on their board. Maybe they don't. We don't know that. So we're gonna assume that George Pickens is on their board. And I think if he's on their board here and happens to fall, I think he's probably the pick here. But Kenneth Walker is my RB1. I really like him. If they're going to have this more balanced offense, they're probably looking to have a bell cow back. But the bigger issue for the offense might be guard, left guard in particular. So in that case, maybe Dylan Parham is someone they prioritize. But, if you're just looking for a guard, maybe we could try to come back and get like Ed Ingram, a little bit later in the 3rd round who can play left guard instead of, taking someone now. Maybe if you can get guards a little bit later in the draft. So it just depends. Where are you leaning on this one, Aaron? I know you're not the biggest Pickens fan, so.
Yeah. I'm infamous for not being a huge Pickens fan, but he wouldn't be my pick here, but I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, that seems likely. Like if it was me, I'm taking Dylan Parham, but I don't necessarily expect the Falcons to take a guard early. So trying to look. Like I'm trying to look at like who's the best like defensive player available that I think they would seriously entertain.
Yeah, like Christian Harris is there.
Maybe Harris or Leo Chenal, one of those
Chenal.
two.
I sort of think they might lean a player like Chenal more than Harris for their defense, but Christian Harris is very good too.
I'm a big fan of Josh Pascal, but I don't know if he's the Falcons type of guy. He's kind of a tweener.
Exactly. I feel like he's a 4-3 end sort of only. I just feel like he doesn't have the length to kick to like 3-4 DE, and I just don't know that he's a great stand-up rusher. That's the only thing. I think he's really good. I just
So like I look at this and I kind of look at those two linebackers. Chenal has the size. They want to continue to get bigger there. Harris is just kind of all around underrated player. I think a really good player at Alabama that for whatever reason just doesn't get the love that typically we get out of Alabama linebackers. I think maybe Dylan Moses ruined it for every Alabama linebacker moving forward. Because like it used to be like if you were starting Alabama linebacker, you were a top 10 pick. So like. Those would be, if it's what I think the Falcons would do with a little bit of Aaron Freeman stank on it, like those would be the direction I would go. But I could certainly see them leaning Pickens here at this point as well.
Yeah, Dave, where are you leaning? I know you're a big fan of Pickens based on what we said about the last pick, but do you think he would be the pick here?
I'm a little haunted by Aaron Freeman stank as a sentence, so I'm still recovering from that. But I think, I would lean toward Pickens here again. from the Falcons' perspective, I think he'd be a good fit for them. And I think if he makes it here, certainly after you've gotten your pass rusher, and you're looking to give Willis and over the short term Mariota another, physical target, I think Pickens would be my choice. Chenal also being a possibility.
Yeah. I think linebacker is just deeper. Like, because I think if you want an X receiver, Pickens is like the last one. Like if you want a guy that with wide receiver 1, X sort of prototypical upside, this is the last one. So I think that's why I would lean it. I think Christian Harris is very good. I think Leo Chenal is very good. But I think at linebacker, like, at wide receiver, like if we don't take Pickens here, it's like maybe at 74, Mechie is still there. Maybe Alec Pierce is still there, but I think the difference, between those sorts of guys is smaller than the difference between like Christian Harris, Leo Chenal, and like Troy Anderson or Darian Beavers or something a little bit later at linebacker. I think you can get good linebackers. There's just so many of them in this draft. And like the Falcons, the need, I mean, if you think they're going to trade Deion Jones, then the need is bigger. But even if they do, they've got Michael Walker, they've got Rashaan Evans, 2 guys that are probably going to play the majority of snaps. Any rookie coming in is probably going to be the third linebacker at best if they trade Deion Jones. If they don't trade Deion Jones, the linebacker need is a future focus thing. So I think they're probably more likely to wait and take a project or like a, sort of a depth linebacker with upside at linebacker versus waiting on a receiver. That's where I'm leaning to. So I think we'll have to. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I was going to say, historically, the Falcons, maybe their worst draft pick ever was a Pickens. So you got to kind of redeem that at some point.
Some draft history.
Bruce Pickens, I think was the worst pick ever. So it's time to clear that name, so to speak.
Yeah. So we don't know anything about any potential off-field stuff with Pickens. We're not privy to that information. I might, I have a suit picture on Twitter, but I don't like Pickens' agent's not calling me and being like, oh yeah, no, he has concerns. The Georgia coaches don't text me, So like we don't know anything about that. It's possible there is an issue. It's possible there's not. We're going to assume that he's on their board because he's on our board. So if he's on the board here and he's on their board, I think that would be the pick as well. So we're gonna slightly outweigh the Aaron Freeman stank on this pick. So my apologies to you, Aaron, that we have to do the hostile takeover on this one. All right. So let's see. We're going to be going into the third round now. It'll be pick 74. We'll see what's available here. Comically low trade offer. Well, Leo Chenal's still on the board, so you guys want to take Leo Chenal? Ed Ingram is here too. We talked about him. I know Cole Strange has some fans. Nick Benito at edge, if we wanted to double dip there. Abraham Lucas at offensive tackle. Greg Dulcich, Jeremy Ruckert, Kate Odden at tight end. But yeah, I mean, I think we just spent all this time talking about Leo Chenal. I mean, I think he would definitely be a good pick here at 74. But Aaron, what do you think now that we're back? 20 picks later, Leo Chenal's still here. Is that, we're just going to go after the linebacker now?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. This is the range where I kind of feel like Chenal pick makes sense. I've had him mocked a couple of times to the Falcons in this third round sort of range. So clearly, for a while now, I feel like he's a guy that's high on the Falcons' radar.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he makes a lot of sense for this scheme. I think he is the top player on the board, just period, according to TDN here. He's probably the top player on my board. I have to check my rankings. But Dave, are you also ready to pull the trigger on Leo Chenal here now that he's fallen into our laps?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is sort of, 2016 all over again, where guys maybe go. I guess that was actually guys going earlier than expected, but this is sort of a nice surprise. I would have taken Pickens a little bit earlier. I would have taken Chenal a little bit earlier. So I'm definitely on board.
Yeah, and it's like I'll go ahead and make the pick, and we'll get the Falcons' next pick here in a second. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be people that fall, and we talked about this earlier. Like, there's going to be players that fall. This board and all of our boards are just guesses. Like literally we're just guessing about what the NFL thinks, and every team has a different board too. So it's like, and every team, most teams, they pick every 30 odd picks. So like they might have a guy ranked high and the NFL might have a guy ranked high, but if the team's picking between, say, like, the Falcons pick at 58 and 74, if those teams, none of them are interested in a linebacker, like maybe Leo Chenal is like the 50th ranked player on most people's boards, but nobody's interested in a linebacker in those 20 picks. They're all set. He falls to 74. Like crazy stuff happens. Like players are going to fall. Stuff is going to happen that's unexpected. So we're just going to kind of roll with it. We're going to do our best here and see what the Falcons end up with. We're now here at 82. Top of the board is Calvin Austin, the third from Memphis, wide receiver who I love. Khalil Shakir from Boise State, not as high on as Austin, but he's a good wide receiver 3 in my opinion. Couple of interior guys, Cole Strange, more of a center, in my opinion. Ed Ingram, more of a guard. So if we're looking to solidify guard, Ed Ingram, I think, is a slam dunk pick here. I think he's just a good guard. Like, I don't think he's flashy. I don't think he's this crazy athlete or this all-pro ceiling guy. I think he's just a good guard. And honestly, that's what the Falcons could probably use at left guard at this point. And then my tight end 2, Cade Otton, is still here. I would consider him at this point as well. Alec Pierce at wide receiver is another guy that's close to the top for me here. Drake Jackson also still on the board, surprisingly. But yeah, Aaron, where are you leaning based on the guys here at this time?
Sorry, unmuting.
It's okay.
This is why usually in my mocks I kind of wait to this point to get a wide receiver, because I always look at like guys like Calvin Austin and Wan'Dale Robinson and Alec Pierce, and I'm like, yeah, I'll take those guys third round.
Right, they're good. Yeah.
I look at Cole Strange and I'm like, man, this is probably the last chance we'll get someone to come in and compete at left guard for Jalen Mayfield. Again, it doesn't seem like the team is that interested in that. I do think Cole Strange, if they are interested in that, Cole Strange will be a guy that's kind of high on their board because he's a good athlete. He's got that sort of mean physical demeanor. He's got that positional flexibility. So even if he doesn't necessarily beat out Jalen Mayfield as a left guard, you could potentially have him as a center and, all those various things. So, he checks those boxes in that regard. But again, I don't sit here looking and feeling like the Falcons are going to pull the trigger on an interior offensive lineman at this point in the draft. So like this is kind of, this is running back, tight end territory. And, I'm looking at some of these running backs at the top of the board and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think all those players, Rachaad White, James Cook, all make sense for the Falcons, but I don't know if the Falcons those will be the top guys on their board. So, this may be Cade Otton territory for you.
Oh man,
Kevin.
My son. Yeah.
And, like I did watch Cade. I haven't really watched any of the tight ends after the season. I watched a couple of them. And like, I remember at the beginning of the season, really liking Cade Otton. I'm like, oh, this Cade Otton guy, he's going to be one of the top tight ends next year. And then not really going back and revisiting that take. So I'm based off of September, Aaron. Yeah. September, Aaron's a big fan of Cade Otton. So
yeah. I feel like he's the best tight end that no one talks about. Like, I feel like everybody else gets more hype, but he's just like a really good tight end 2, probably be a tight end 1, like a fringe tight end 1 for teams. But like in Atlanta, like he's a good blocker, good receiver. Just have him go out there, be second fiddle to Kyle Pitts, play those 12 sets that you like. He's a better blocker than Anthony Ferguson, that's for damn sure. So, I think they're going to prioritize a blocker not that they're going to take just a pure blocker, but I think they're going to want a guy that can block if they do spend a pick on a tight end too. And they have Ferguson, so the need isn't necessarily like massive, but, I think this is an Arthur Smith offense that will like to have a very good 2 tight end group. I think Cade Otton makes a lot of sense there. I love Calvin Austin. Like if you guys want to draft another receiver here and add Calvin Austin in here to this mix and just commit to sort of getting some explosiveness, George Pickens gives you that deep threat, that sort of, big receiver that can go up and get it. And he offers you some possession stuff too. But Austin's a home run hitter. Austin is a great short yardage, dump off guy, manufactured touches guy. They don't necessarily have that on the roster either. I think Damiere Byrd might get a chance to do that. But I like Austin. I like I could go for Strange Ingram. I could go for Calvin Austin. I could go for Kate Otten. But Dave, you're gonna have to help us get some clarity here because we're just fumbling with all these options.
Yeah, I personally lean Strange or Otten. I think you guys have made the case for tight end pretty well. I think Ferkser's a good addition for this offense, but he's a one-year addition. I think the Falcons long-term would love to have another guy that they feel really good about, especially a plus blocker behind Pitts, working with Pitts. And I think that I don't know that they can add enough interior offensive linemen. Like I am not convinced that Gossett, as much as he appears to be a Dwayne Ledford favorite, offers more than, a reserve option. I'm not sure that Dahlman is going to figure in at guard rather than center. And to me, the Falcons actually haven't really added anybody who can credibly play left guard. So if you feel good about Strange potentially pushing Mayfield for the job and offering sort of that fail-safe option, even if Mayfield does win it, I think he'd be a strong pick here and somebody they consider. I really think sneakily they have not done a lot to address the interior of the offensive line, which is surprising for a team that talks about wanting to fill needs. So you could talk me Strange pretty easily.
Yeah, I guess I was wrong about Strange. I thought he was a college center, but I'm reading. I didn't really watch him much. I saw him at the Senior Bowl. He wasn't one of the guys I ranked because I haven't seen much of him.
I think
you try getting Chattanooga
time at the Senior Bowl playing center. So I think that's probably why you assumed that.
Yeah, but apparently he played 41 games of his 44 games at left guard. So he is actually a natural guard. And I guess he has better size. I thought he was small for some reason, but I think he's listed at like 6'5", 300 something pounds. So apparently he has size for guard, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I guess with that in mind, I am a fan. I'm more interested in that. I guess for me, it's really tough for me to pass on Calvin Austin because I feel like he's just awesome. Obviously, he's a weird player. Like he's sort of on the threshold of like, is this a guy that can make it in the NFL because he's 5'7", like 185. At least he doesn't weigh like 160 pounds. Like who was it last year that was like 5'7" and like 160 that the Rams took in like the second round? Man, it was a wide receiver, I think, but just sort of like one of the smallest players like in the NFL at that point, and like didn't really do anything for them that round. I think Calvin Austin, he's like thicker. He's more of like a Jaquiz Rogers sort of build, like 5'7", a little bit of meat on the bones. But I guess I would probably lean Austin, Strange, or Otten. What are you leaning from those three, Aaron? Where would you go?
Again, I'm sprinting to the podium for getting offensive line help. I've basically spent the last couple of weeks trying to find who is a third round option for the Falcons to come in and compete for Jalen Mayfield. So Cole Strange, I'm like if he, he's the last chance we have to get that. But again, as I said, like it doesn't feel like the Falcons are that interested in bringing in competition because you would assume that if they were going to bring in competition, it would have been a veteran player. And, I guess as Dave said, that's Kobe Gossett is their competition, or maybe they decide to try Jermaine Ifedi there and get him his first snaps of his career at left guard or whatever the case may be. Or maybe they think Elijah Wilkinson can play some guard. He's played some left tackle. He's played some right guard. So it doesn't seem like they're that interested in that. So like that, even though I would sit here and, again, Aaron Freeman stank, Cole Strange all day. I want to go with you on Calvin Austin, but I feel like I can't do that because I just went on a rant about not taking wide receivers, and now we're going to double dip on wide receivers.
Yeah. Well, this is where you said you liked wide receivers.
So I kind of by default have to pick Kate Otten here, right? Yeah.
No, I mean, well, it's weird, and I want to give Dave a chance to weigh in too, but it's weird because I was right there with you. Like I was like, they're not going to spend another day 2 pick on the interior offensive line. That's ridiculous. Like they have like all these guys they already spent these premium picks on. Like they're going to sign a veteran. They didn't sign a veteran. They signed like 3 veterans at right tackle and nothing at guard except Colby Gossett, no offense. some offense, I guess, but not to Colby Gossett, but like to the staff, for that's the only competition. So like to me, it's like originally I was thinking like, oh, they're going to draft a tackle because they're probably not going to bring back, they're not going to give Caleb McGarry his option and all this stuff. They're looking for a tackle next year, so it'd be good to get a developmental guy this year. But like they brought in Jermaine Ifedi and Elijah Wilkinson, both guys that can play tackle. Ifedi's like a serviceable tackle, so it seems like they sort of shored up tackle. But guard, they didn't do anything. They haven't really done anything at all. So to me, it's like late in the process, I'm like, well, maybe they are actually just going to draft another guard. Like maybe like that just somehow here we are again on day 2, taking another guard. But as long as they get it right this time, it's fine. Like as long as it's right, that's fine. But if like this player doesn't beat out Jalen Mayfield and then Jalen Mayfield is really bad again, then it's like, what the hell are we doing? Like whoever's grading your interior offensive line picks needs to go like immediately, because this is a process now. But maybe it's just like we just need to, try again. Because technically Matt Hennessy wasn't their pick. So maybe it's not fair to put him in the bucket of like top, day 2 picks spent on the interior offensive line. But they did spend one on Drew Dahlman, who to be fair is like a 4th rounder, but more of a depth selection. Jalen Mayfield, we hoped would be a depth selection, but he's a starter. So yeah, I mean, I think honestly now seeing what's been done, I think it's actually the chances of them spending a pick on an interior guy, if they like them, is actually like a realistic possibility, considering that they didn't really address the position. But Dave, are you sort of leaning offensive line here too, or are you going to pound the table for one of these other guys? Because if you want to pound the table for Calvin Austin, I'll allow it, and Kate Otten too, but just, pick whichever one you think is best.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards Strange. And I think you look at this team and you want competition everywhere. And I think they fell down last year with that because Mayfield clearly they didn't think was ready to play. And then Andrews got hurt, and Andrews they clearly didn't think enough of to kind of push Mayfield off the field for any reason because of the developmental time there. But they need to add more talent here. And I think long-term it serves them well to have multiple guys who can play multiple positions credibly. Like even if you believe Mayfield should and will start this year, and I think the should is a big question mark, but the will I think is something that's going to happen. Adding somebody like Strange who can, back him up, potentially be a factor at center and right guard. If all goes well, like having that depth for injury, having a guy you feel good about if Mayfield falters, like that to me means a lot, because you can get wrecked pretty easily, as we know as Falcons fans, if you have a couple spots on the line that you don't have the depth, you don't have quality starters. So if they feel good about Strange, which is something I think is a real possibility, I would go get him. And you can worry about the blowback from that later if it doesn't work out. But I think it's much better off for this team to be deeper, more talented, have some youth, have some affordability there than trying to stock this thing, through free agency.
Yeah, and like if they take Cole Strange and Jalen Mayfield legitimately wins the competition and is like somehow an average to above average guard this year, then it's like I'm not going to be mad at the Strange pick. Like they needed to add composition, and Strange coming from Chattanooga, like maybe he needs time too, and that's fine. But I think they need to add something there. And like, are they going to, like, what else is out there in terms of free agency? I mean, maybe Nick Easton or whatever, but like, maybe that sort of player is still someone they could go get. But at this time, they haven't added that player. We can't assume that they will. So we're going off of what we know. Maybe they have some, agreement already written with Nick Easton that if they don't get a guy that they like, they're going to go sign him right after the draft. I don't know. But, I think I lean Strange here as well. And not just because, I think fans will be mad if we don't, take another trench player. Because we took Malik Willis at 8. So we have to get, more trench players to offset that, soft pick of a quarterback at the top. So, yeah, I think we can go Strange here. That's a different one too. We're getting some different picks in here. I like it. Add a little spice to this final mock draft. Falcons pick again at 114 in the 4th round. We get into these day 3 picks. Probably not going to be as fierce of arguments going for these day 3 picks, guys. But definitely some interesting players. Hopefully will be available. We'll see who's there at 114. Again, thanks to everyone for hanging out with us. I know I even if I wasn't doing the show, I'd probably be like looking up draft stuff or rumors or something like that anyway. So I assume you guys are in the same boat. So we're happy to provide you with some of that sweet, sweet draft content here the night before the draft. Please like and subscribe also if you haven't done so already. Those really help us out. Thanks, guys. All right. So 114. This is a typical place where we see the Falcons take a running back. We could also see what other types of players are available here. At running back, we've got Brian Robinson Jr., Damian Pierce is another guy I really like. Hassan Haskins and Jerome Ford too, but we could get them in the 5th round, I would say, if we wanted to get one of those guys. But I think like Brian Robinson and Damian Pierce, probably the top 2 guys at this point. Kirby Joseph from Illinois, the safety, is at the top of TDN's board here. I don't like him like that. Fidarian Mathis from Alabama, honestly, this is a good place for him. I think he's just like a solid starting defensive tackle. He could play some 3-4 end too. So, I think he's a solid pick. There's a lot of linebackers, but we got Leo Chenal. I don't really think they need another linebacker. It's not really necessary. Majai Sanders from Cincinnati, there's some buzz that maybe they like him. There's some sort of project offensive tackles like Dare Rosenthal and Luke Godicke. Let's see what else we got. At safety, Damari Mathis, Tyson Anderson. That's probably a little early for those guys. Yeah, corner's not amazing either. I'm not in love with any of those guys. Yeah. Yeah. Aaron, where are you sort of leaning here? Because I know you're a super big Brian Robinson fan.
Yeah. Wandale Robinson is to Eric Robinson like Brian Robinson is to me. So I'm always pushing for Brian Robinson. He's the guy. He's the pick. I've been slotting him in at round 4 for basically 4 months. So that's my vote. Predictive mock Falcons get him all day.
Yeah. Yep, that makes sense. Makes sense to me. Dave, where do you sort of lean here? Do you want to chase a running back? Do you want to go after perhaps a like a defensive tackle like a Fidarian Mathis, something else in the trenches? What are you sort of thinking about here?
I'm thinking either Robinson or double dipping with Sanders. I like Sanders quite a bit. I think the Falcons like Sanders, so I think we have to at least consider him here. But Robinson, to me, like this would be an ideal place to get your future running back. And I've been pounding the table for I'm trying to remember how many years, but it's at least been a couple for the Falcons to go out and get like their bell cow young back that they can. I don't want to say run into the ground because that's not what I want to happen, but really, really soak up those first few crucial years when you have fresh legs, you're relatively affordable, and can lead the backfield effectively. So like if Robinson is that guy, and I think he certainly can be for Arthur Smith, I think he's probably the pick here.
Yeah, I mean, I overruled Aaron earlier on another pick. Technically I have Damian Pierce ahead of Robinson on my board by like a spot or two. So that's where I would lean. But again, I think Robinson is a very much like a prototypical Arthur Smith sort of running back. Makes sense given what the Falcons have outside of him. They have passing down options. Brian Robinson's not an electric passing down threat. He can pass block, certainly, but he's not going to offer you a lot in terms of the passing game. I mean, it's not like he has bad hands or anything like that, but he's fine. I do prefer Pierce. I think he's a more dynamic option. But again, it's not to the point where I would like overrule you guys if you both like Robinson better. So is that your pick, Aaron and Dave? You guys want to go with Robinson? I'll allow it, without a fight.
Yeah, that's my pick. That's my pick.
Okay. We'll give you that one because I got the other one, so you guys can have this one. This is a collaborative draft experience here. Okay, I'm not just gonna.
I do want to add though, with like guys like Fedarian Mathis and Mijay, I still don't know how to say
Mijay, I think.
Yeah, I got to figure that out before the draft, right? I do think those guys are probably going to go earlier than this point. Like I feel like they're firmly like round 3 guys. I just feel like the need at those two positions and the fact that after a certain point in this draft, you're gonna Sanders is going to be very intriguing to a team that misses out on an edge rusher after the first 2 rounds, and I think Mathis is the same. Like he's an Alabama defensive tackle. Like those guys are just like proven in the NFL. Like that guy's always going to be a 3rd round pick every single year.
Yeah, exactly. Like I sort of think, especially at defensive tackle, where it's really not a deep class. Like I think he's going to get pushed up in the 3rd round for sure. So like I think he's a very good value here at 114. But let's go with the Brian Robinson pick. Also, I don't think I've ever drafted Brian Robinson in any of my mocks either, which is not on purpose. I think because I have Dameon Pierce ahead of him, like I just always end up taking Pierce instead. But yeah, it's not like I don't like Brian Robinson. I think he's fine. I just he does fit more of the Arthur Smith archetype, I will admit, than a Dameon Pierce, But Dameon Pierce looks more like a Mike Davis in terms of his build, but I'll allow it this time. All right, let's see what kind of options we got at pick 151. All right. So, if we wait for a tight end, we have some options here. My other son, Daniel Bellinger, is still here. He's near the top of the board. Somehow Kingsley and Igbare is here. There's like 0 chance. I think he's in round 5 available. I think that he might fall like late into the 3rd, but whoever put him as like pick 1, he's ranked 150 on their board. I don't get that. Like, sure, he's not like top Pro Bowl type of edge rusher, but I do like him as like a high floor guy, which would apparently fit what the Falcons are going for. They only like high floor guys apparently. So, but yeah, Daniel Bellinger. There's some running backs, but we're not. We just took one, so we're probably good on that. There's some linebackers. We took that. At corner, Jalen Amore Davis from Alabama. Caleb Evans from Missouri too is another like intriguing guy. Let's see. Justin Ross at wide receiver for looking for some size there. Eric Ezukanma is another guy I like. Charlie Kolar is there too. Haskell Garrett at defensive tackle. Chris Paul. We'd already took an interior guy though. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably take Bellinger here and just not think about it too much, but I am interested where you would lean, Aaron, with these sorts of options available.
Yeah, like Bellinger makes sense. We got to get our San Diego State guy.
Yes,
get that
we
John
need one.
Hope
Yeah,
connection in, and I know Evans out there being like, there's one San Diego State player that we got to draft, but maybe we can get 2. But part of me is like, man, we need to get some defensive players, right? Like we're getting too heavy on the offense.
Right.
And I'm like looking at the board, and I'm like, but I don't, I'm not like I'm not going to pound the table for like any of these guys. Like who are the edge rushers like?
Well, like Kingsley, but like he's not going to be here. Like I think we can all agree, like there's 0% chance that's going to happen. So I think I'm probably just crossing him off mentally. But I know someone mentioned Uwuzurike, who he had taken before. Okay. He is still here, so we could consider him. I think that was a good pick before. He might be available a little bit later on, but he's like, he's the second interior guy like ranked left, so he could possibly go soon. So if we wanted another defensive lineman, we could take Uwuzurike here. I thought that was a pretty good pick last time. We could take Bellinger and then see, and hope that he makes it. Uwuzurike. Because after that, I don't know if there's anyone else they're gonna be super interested in. But
yeah, I mean, because we got this pick and 2 more picks left, right?
Yep,
one of them's got to be a punter.
One of them's got to be a punter for sure. Yeah.
Right? So, so we have to basically decide. I feel like one of these picks got to be a defensive player, and so if someone like a Uwuzurike is like we feel best about him of all the guys left, I think it makes sense to go him and then see what's available maybe later at tight end, because we know this is a relatively deep tight end class.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, guys, if Kingsley's actually here, then absolutely take him without question. But like I'm fine like taking guys that like drop a round. I think this is like 2 rounds dropped, in my opinion, for Kingsley. Like I think he's a 3rd round pick. So like it's like I do want to take guys that fall. I think that one is like, if we take him in this mock, people will be like, oh, there's no way he's gonna be there. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Like that, and I agree. Like that one's kind of ridiculous. Like I do want to keep it within reason to some extent. Like if Inibari is there, they really should. It would be Kingsley. Yes, we can all admit that he's the best player available. He has no business being around this late.
Yeah, I'm curious why TDN suddenly completely flipped him in their rankings. So maybe they heard something that, because when we talk about players falling, like 9 times out of 10. When the guy falls on draft day and we're like, why is this guy haven't been picked yet? It's always a medical thing or it's a character issue that we don't know about.
So, I mean, if you guys want to take Kingsley, I'm fine with it. Like, I just sort of think that it's very, very unlikely. But, I'm fine taking some unlikely. I think, Pickens falling, we could say that's maybe not super likely to happen. Like some of our picks, I think we're like Ebikadi, like, he fell. We took him. It was a little bit of a fall. I don't think it was out of the realm of possibility. Same thing with Pickens. Same thing with Chenal. I think we've been just taking good value on guys that fall. I just think like Kingsley should go in the top 100. Like we're talking about 50 picks. So that's the only reason I give it a little bit of pause. I just really think that's pushing it. I feel like it might invalidate the whole mock if we like really, just pencil that in. But maybe we're all putting too much stock into this exercise to begin with.
Kevin's worried about the comments.
I know. You said it before the show. Those YouTube comments, they're brutal. So please still comment, guys. The algo gods must be appeased. But yeah, Dave, what do you think about the options on the board here?
I would go with whoever you guys want. We're getting to the point where I'm pretty out of my element.
Yeah, you're tapped out.
Yeah, I would say, if you can get yourself another capable pass rusher, I'm on board with that. So you guys tell me who that is and we're in.
Okay. Dave is in. Dave is good. Yeah, I mean, if you want to lean Owuzurike here and see if we can get a tight end to fall, I think that's possible. But
have we gotten, I can't recall, like Dave, my brain starts to lose, whatever at this point in time in the draft. Did we take an interior defensive lineman yet?
No.
Okay. So yeah, I would lean Owuzurike just so we can get a body up front.
All right. That's our sleeper like connection to the Falcons pick. Once again, I think that one, I always like that. That's how I correctly predicted John Kaminsky. So I was like, oh, I know they had a visit with him and he's still here and they're going to take him. And then that was the one pick I ever got right. So we're going to go with that sort of strategy again here. So we're going to go with the Owuzurike, get that interior guy to help out. And then we will see what's on the board at 190.
This is prime punter time.
Yeah, this is we're in the, I don't even know how you sort by punter. I don't even think there's an option.
Yeah. I think they got forced into putting Ariza on their
their
board after 3 months.
Yeah, I don't actually see any punters on here. So we may have to just pencil that in. I do wonder if it's going to be one of those weird things where it's because there's 3 or 4 good punters that just they all go undrafted as a result, and just the teams just know they're going to get one anyway. But all right, let's see. I see Jordan Stout.
Okay, they finally put Jordan Stout up there.
He's listed as the last player on the board at 399. So I had to scroll. Let me see if there's any other punters, because I think the Georgia guy probably should be on the board. I think he's deserving.
I think there's going to be 3 punters taken.
Yeah.
I think people are going to be surprised that Jordan Stout might be the first one taken.
Yeah, I know that's going to be contentious. I know there was some buzz about that. Let's see. Did Ariza already go? That can't be. It's not possible. I don't see Ariza. I wonder if he went to somebody else. Maybe they fixed it, because it used to be broken before where no one would ever take a punter. So you could just take Ariza whenever you wanted. But honestly don't even see him like at all.
I did see when we were scrolling through that the 49ers took my guy Carson Strong. So
yep. R.I.P. that dream.
Watch out for Trey Lance losing his job to Carson Strong in 2 years.
Yes. Yeah, I don't even see Ariza on the board. I don't know what's going on with that. That's weird. We may have to just pencil that in as the unofficial pick, even if it's not on the board. That I will allow that. Jordan Stout could be another option. The Georgia punter is Camarda. Is that his name?
Yeah, that's Jake Camarda. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see. Well, there's no punter theoretically on the board here, at least. So, but there are some other options. Eric Ezukanma from Texas Tech at wide receiver. That one's interesting. Mario Goodrich from Clemson. He seems to have really tumbled, but I still like him, especially at this range. Amare Barno from Virginia Tech. Just the fastest edge rusher ever to grace this planet Earth. I still can't believe he ran that fast, to be completely honest. So he's at least somewhat intriguing. I know there's a lot of Isaiah Polamau fans at safety. He's someone that's a little bit interesting. Yeah, I sort of think those are the main guys. James Mitchell is the top tight end left. Austin Allen. Cole Turner. Let's see. Yeah, Bo Melton's there. I mean, I think he's interesting. I think he's a solid guy that can sort of complement other players. Ezukanma's interesting. Goodrich is interesting. What do you think, Aaron?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Wait, my computer is frozen.
Yeah, your video's frozen. I still hear you, though. We might have lost Aaron. He might be gone. His computer was like, no more day 3 draft takes. I can't take this anymore. Pick 190. It's just like all the real computers at the that are going to be like all the real draft people are just going to be like, we just need to go home. We just need to get out of here. I'm trying to see if Matt Ariza actually did get taken at some point. Because I don't see him. I don't know if he somehow got taken off the board or what. Well, if Aaron's gone, Dave, you're gonna have to help me make this pick 190.
Punter time.
Who?
It's time for a punter.
Well, I told you I can't find him. Ariza's not here. I don't see him. I mean, we could just say we take Ariza. We could just say we take Ariza.
I do think that they have not addressed that, and I don't think they love Dom Maggio, or I think he would have pushed harder.
Yeah.
For the job last year. So I very seriously think they're considering drafting one. And so, if Ariza is not here for some reason, I would consider Stout. I really legitimately think, as unpopular as it may be, or maybe it's not even unpopular anymore. Maybe everyone's made peace with it. Yeah. I think it's a big time clue that they just have one guy who didn't actually end up punting for them last year, even though he had opportunities, and they haven't added competition. Like, to me, that says this is a need that they've identified where they think the best player on the board at some point is going to be a punter.
Yeah. All right. We can take Jordan Stout.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I think Stout's terrific.
Stout will be here at 213. We can game the system a little bit. Like, he's ranked 399 on the board, so we can be confident in this simulation that he will be there at 213. So we could take another player at 190. Like, we could get away with that.
I like Goodrich. I know you mentioned him.
Yeah, I mean, Barno could be an option too, but I think Goodrich is a really good developmental corner. He's only had one season as a starter, so that's probably why he's falling here.
I know they're ridiculously stacked at corner, which I guess is the best argument against that. I do like Darren Hall. I've made no secret of that, but I think if you're talking about best player available, he's got to be one of the best ones.
Yeah,
here.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Aaron's not here to tell us not to take a corner, so we're a receiver, so we can do whatever we want. Yeah, we're free to do whatever we want here. Let's see. Let's go Goodrich. Let's just do it. Add some secondary. We're just taking like a scattershot approach. We're going to take like one of every single position. If the Falcons had 11 picks, we'd get every position at least one. I think, I know a lot of people are saying, Ezukanma, and I like that pick too. Amari Barno, I think that's something, that one has potential. I think all these guys it's sort of like pick your poison. I guess I lean slightly Goodrich, and I think Dave does too. So that's what we're going to do. And Aaron can't stop us. So.
Yeah, and I think you're talking about at this point, like you're talking about a depth guy or a lottery ticket, right?
Yeah.
You're either getting, and I'm trying to think of like noteworthy 6th-round picks from past years, but of course my mind immediately goes to like a Gage or an Aluakon, like that's what you hope you're getting. But if you get just a solid backup, then great. It's a 6th-round pick.
Yeah. All right. Now we can get our punter because we knew we could game the system. And if the Falcons predictively knew they could game the system, they would also do so without question. So
yeah, no question.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much canon. So yeah, the only punter I can find in the whole system is Jordan Stout. It's probably because Ariza went early. So we'll go with Stout here. If you guys have a preference for Camarda over Stout, that's fine. Literally, I just can't draft any. There's no other punter as far as I can tell. I can't sort by punter. I can't find punter. So, we're just gonna go with Stout there. But yeah, I think they are really interested in a punter. I agree with everything Dave said there. I think they've intentionally not signed a veteran. They let their veteran go, who was really good for them, which to me, and they did the same thing with Josh Harris, which to me signals they're just trying to sort of start over. Not that Josh Harris isn't good. Not that now I can't even think of his name, the punter. Saints legend, But
no, I can't think of his name. As soon as you said it, it's like zapped out of my brain.
I'm losing it.
Aaron would be ashamed of us if he was here. Yeah.
What is his name? I don't know. I can't remember. I can't remember, but it doesn't matter. He's not on the team anymore. He's not on the team anymore. So, all right, guys. So we're gonna show you our final picks. At 8, we took the very contentious but predictive route of the Falcons not passing on Malik Willis if he's still around there. It was a tough call. And I don't think any of us would be surprised if in this scenario where they didn't have any edge rushers or offensive tackles really available, that they went with like Jordan Davis there, or they went with like Kyle Hamilton there. We've done that before. We've done that. And I think predictively they're going to have a hard time passing on Willis because I think there's a lot of pressure there to get that franchise quarterback, even if it's a guy you're going to have to wait for. It's Thomas Morstead. Thank you, guys. Thank you. At 43, we do get that edge rusher with Arnold Ebiketie falling, which is a great pick in my opinion. I really like that pick. If he's there, I would sprint to the podium. I think he's a fantastic edge rusher. He offers you a lot against the run, and he's just a really good explosive speed rusher too. Definitely gives, I think he's more of an edge too, but you're getting him at 43, so he's a piece of the puzzle. Like he's not your, Khalil Mack, but he is maybe your second guy. And maybe next year you come back and get that second guy. So, at 58, we've got George Pickens, wide receiver from Georgia, which that was much to Aaron's chagrin because he doesn't like George Pickens. But I think Dave and I both thought if the Falcons do have him on their board, that he will probably be the pick there if he falls that far. They do need a wide receiver pretty badly. And I think the need for wide receiver is probably a little more accentuated if they get the quarterback because they're probably looking to get that offense up and running a little bit faster than they might have been if they were sort of going to punt on quarterback for another year. At 74, first third round pick, we took linebacker Leo Chenal from Wisconsin. Absolute alien. In terms of his testing, bigger linebacker, physical, makes a lot of sense in the 3-4, gives them a really good run stuffer who I think actually has pretty darn good upside in coverage considering his athletic testing and stuff like that. So he's a player I think will be able to grow into a bigger role, but I think he'll have an early role as like a run stuffer. We took Cole Strange, the guard from Chattanooga. Tons of experience at left guard. We need to get competition from Jalen Mayfield. They haven't yet. So we're going to do it. We're going to do it ourselves. 114, Brian Robinson Jr., the running back from Alabama. I had to like acquiesce to Dave and Aaron on this one. You know, Damian Pierce is my boy, but I do agree that Brian Robinson certainly does fit the mold of Arthur Smith, and would be a good early down sort of grinder for this team. And they don't really have that on the roster at this point. 151, the 5th round pick. We took Ioma Uwuzurike, the defensive tackle, 3-4 defensive end from Iowa State. The Falcons do have some connection to him, I believe. I think he was coached by one of the Falcons coaches. There's been a little bit of smoke there. And he's an intriguing sort of high upside defensive lineman. Lots of length. We know they like that type of player. Wouldn't be shocked at all. And last 2 picks, both 6th rounders. So 190, the original 6th rounder. We took Mario Goodrich, the corner from Clemson, who's been falling a little bit lately. Just a 1-year starter, a lot of upside, can play just about any role in the secondary. I think that's a pick that makes a lot of sense. See if you can develop him. Maybe he just becomes a good depth guy. Maybe he can eventually be a starter in a couple years when Cam Hayward is moving on. Then we've also got at 213, the punter, Jordan Stout from Penn State. Literally no other punters were available in the system. So if you prefer Jake Camarda or whatever, that's fine. I assume Matt Ariza went earlier. I couldn't actually find him, but I think he went in the 4th round or something like that. So they get another good punter and only have to spend, pick 213 to secure their guy. So that is our draft, guys. We really appreciate everyone for tuning in. Appreciate Aaron for coming back in the chat. And being too cowardly to finish the mock, but no, I'm sure he's having computer troubles. I know someone asked about Adnan's status. Adnan is doing Ramadan, so he's not doing stuff at night. But he will be back for the draft parties coming soon, like tomorrow. So he will be back. But that's he was doing that stuff. I think that means he can't do a lot of stuff at night when they're doing other stuff. I'm very ignorant of that whole custom, so I'm not really gonna say too much about it because I don't really know the details. But tweet at Adnan if you want to ask more questions about that, I guess. But yeah, guys, we really appreciate you hanging out. Obviously, we'll be back tomorrow night for our draft party day 1. 7:30 p.m. is when we kick off. We're gonna have some terrific guests, a lot of people coming in through all 3 days of the draft. We'll be here every night doing our thing, hopefully celebrating some picks. Before we go, do have a final tip, it looks like. Hold on one second. All right, from Dion Lewis Struther, 28-29 exactly was the tip. I don't know if he was trying. I see what you're doing there. And I appreciate it, I guess is what I'll say. He says, cheers to Matt Ariza at 8. We need to secure the future. Seriously, on my mock, I have the Falcons taking Jermaine Johnson at 8, Nakobe Dean at 43, DeMarvin Leal at 58, Matt Corral, 74, Kenneth Walker, 82. Majai Sanders at 114, Tyrese Robinson at 151, Justin Ross at 190, Mario Goodrich at 213. Yeah, so we had some overlap on a couple of those picks here with Mario Goodrich and stuff. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I had to pick an odds-on favorite to be the Falcons pick, it would be Jermaine Johnson. That's the most likely pick, I think. Lately, we've been getting this smoke about 4 edges going before the Falcons pick, which is a little bit ridiculous in my opinion, but it's possible. I think if Johnson is there, I think he's probably the pick. But Dave, Dion Lewis Strother, thank you so much. We really do appreciate that, man. Appreciate that a lot. Dave, any final draft takes you need to get off before draft night arrives?
No, I'm gonna go down with the ship here and see if I can set myself up for another take that will be mocked and say they're definitely going to pick a quarterback. I don't know when it's going to be. They're definitely taking one. I am putting that in as a lock, and I hope we're not recording this in case I'm wrong. So.
Yeah, we'll just edit this last minute out.
If you
only
could,
the true OGs are going to still be watching the podcast at minute 158 or whatever, at 1 hour 58 minutes in. So the true OGs will know that you were wrong, but no one else will. So it's pretty low risk, I think, at this point.
Oh, that's good. Phew.
Yeah. All right, guys. Yeah. Like I said, join us tomorrow night, 7:30, right here for our draft party. make sure to follow Dave Choate at the Falcoholic. Dave, anything you'd like to plug before we sign off?
No, just huge kudos to you, Kevin, to Will, to Everett Glaze, and the gang for doing so much great work.
Forward. I think I lost Dave. Did you guys?
Did I disconnect there?
Okay, I got you back. You're back now. Welcome back.
Where did I get cut off?
I think you were like thanking everyone. I think you got through all the names, but then it cut off. We didn't hear what you were thanking them for. Yeah.
Great timing. So all I was saying was, kudos to all of you guys for the great work. And if you haven't read our draft guide that I've been curating that has all of our coverage over the last several months, make sure you catch up on that because it's tremendous. And I think you'll be as well prepared as you possibly can be for this draft if you make sure you catch up on everything. So thanks again.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate your time, Dave. Also had with us Aaron Freeman at Falc Fans, who wasn't able to get back in here apparently after the technical difficulties. I think he's just a coward, but no, it's okay. We were like over an hour and 50 minutes at that point, so I don't blame him. But he is the host of the Locked On Falcons podcast. There was a great episode. I think it was, I don't know if it was today's or yesterday's episode technically, but where if you want to listen to his true manifesto on why wide receiver at 8 is the ultimate sin for this team, go listen to that podcast because he goes all in. On that being a mistake and really lays out the case for it in a good way, I think. And he's 100% right about it. So yeah, check that out. And that's a good podcast as well. I hope we'll be able to give you an update on our podcast here at some point. I've been doing my damnedest to get that going, but it hasn't happened. So all of you that listen to this on the podcast feed, you haven't seen anything in the last month. I apologize. I'm doing my best. So hopefully that will be sorted out sometime in the near future. But in the meantime, you can always subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/Falcoholic Live. That the Patreon gets access to all episodes of this, ad-free, high quality, they're like 1 gigabyte size audio downloads and glorious, uncompressed WAV files. So, if you're interested in that, or maybe you just want to support us, and that's cool too. It's patreon.com/Falcoholic Live, guys. But like I said, I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin. Follow me if you want. I do have a suit on in my Twitter profile picture, which, as we know, that is the true test of whether someone is trustworthy, a trustworthy sports reporter. So I've got that box checked for you. Otherwise, guys, we will see you tomorrow night for day 1 of the draft. It's going to be a good time. We're going to make it a good time no matter who they pick. Because if it's a bad pick, then we're going to have fun, slamming it. Usually, some of the times we've slammed the picks, we've been wrong, like we slammed the Calvin Ridley pick and that ended up not being so bad. Now, this year it looks bad, but up until now, we looked silly for that. So, we'll see. But again, guys,
I think it was just a gamble. I think it was. We thought it was a gamble. So,
and the gamble paid off. Mostly. They technically got through the rookie contract. So, you draft for the rookie contract. How could we predict that he would gamble while he was not playing?
That's our job. We got to be on this stuff.
We should.
We let you down.
We should have known. Yeah. If only some person with a suit on would have tweeted us that tidbit, that rumor. That would have been helpful, but didn't get that one. All right, guys. Have a great night. We will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one, and try to get some sleep. Relax a little bit because we got a long draft night tomorrow, and then several more days as well. So until then, guys, for myself, for Dave, for Aaron, have a great night. We will see you tomorrow night, folks. Have a good one.